Hey there, ghosties. Welcome to episode 87 of the Ghost Lights podcast. Today's guest is GerRee Hinshaw, let's just be honest, one of the many stars of Refuge at Curious Theater. You may remember her from such works as Men on Boats for the Catamounts, as well as the many years hosting the Henrys. We talk about our journeys, what we find that draws us to theater, the things that help us buy in and create the world in which we're presenting. And then we talk about Adam Sandler. Maybe it's problematic. You be the judge. Dan, give us War by the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble. Episode 87 of the Ghost Lights podcast, ghosties. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Basil Hayden. A little whiskey will do you. Basil Hayden's.
Is that their slogan?
No, that's mine. Okay. I come up with them off the top of my head, and I really hope it's funny when I say them. Mm-hmm. Tonight's guest is someone you may have known, Denver theater peeps. My first encounter with you is you were hosting the Henrys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With Stephen J. Burge.
Stephen J. Burge. Both of you awesome energy people. Everyone, it's GerRee Hinshaw in the house. Woo!
So glad to be here. So glad.
That's right. We started today off with a little ASMR, so if we get really low in our whispers, don't get freaked out.
No,
leave the volume where it is. It's just a little bit of...
just some sudden love.
Sudden love. I found today's tagline for when I post this online. Sudden love. That's right. We are having a great time, as always. GerRee, thank you so much for being with us today. I know that me and her are working on a project together. You probably may have heard me talk about it. It's called Refuge. It's at Curious Theater. GerRee, who exactly are you in that piece?
I play a woman named Martina. She is a Border Patrol agent, and that becomes relevant to the plot pretty quickly, given that we have a girl from Honduras who has crossed the border between Mexico and Texas. And Martina is, sort of dwells in, a world that is really not built for her either. She's a woman in CBP, and I think even currently, there's only like 7% of the agents, if that. I feel like it might be 5 to 7% of the agents are women in CBP. Wow. And then she's also a lesbian, so there's also that part of her, what sort of makes her feel a little bit vulnerable in that space.
Yeah. There's a question that I'm going to ask when we're not recording about your character, because I don't want to spoil anything. So you're thanking me as much as you want to hear the question, ghosties at home. I'm saving you a spoiler because you're going to get your tickets. We close April 10th, and they are going real fast. Dan, aren't they going fast?
There's almost none left.
There's almost none left.
We close April 9th. Please don't try to come on the 10th.
Oh, sorry. Yes. April 10th is a Sunday.
You got a night free now.
Fantastic. Sudden love.
Sudden love. That's one thing I've always enjoyed about the Curious approach to the show schedule is that you open on a Saturday night, which is when you should have an opening, because, that's when you really want to party.
You want to get crunk afterwards,
right?
Yeah.
And then you don't have a matinee the next day.
Yeah.
And that is really super awesome. And then on the other end, you close on a Sunday and you don't close on a matinee.
Nice.
It's good stuff.
That is good.
Yeah.
I like it, and something occurred to me while we were going through that first bit of downtime. This is really interesting stuff for the ghosties at home. My thought processes on how schedules are made. I was like, oh, I know why we didn't have a show on Sunday. Equity rules. Is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I hope it's Curious just doing smart thinking.
No show on what?
Because we need that day off. We worked Monday through.
Oh, you were thinking. Oh, in terms of the
the hours and stuff, the allotments.
Tech week.
Yeah.
Oh, got you. That may very well be true. Although, if that were true, how come I've had to do matinees after openings at other theaters?
Uh-oh. Don't get a phone call.
I'm sure they managed the rehearsals that week differently. We'll say that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally fine.
Don't ever ask me about equity stuff. I know nothing.
If you're an equity stage manager and you're
Yes.
listening to this episode,
And you have answers?
don't tweet at us. We don't care.
Yeah. I mean, you could totally... Actually, you know what? Do tweet us because I want the smoke. Bring it on because I'm not equity. This is a podcast.
DM me.
DM
I want to
me.
know the answer.
Slide into those DMs at the Ghostlights 1 on Twitter, the Ghostlights Podcast on Instagram. GerRee Theater, how did it happen to you?
You know, I was in the first grade, and it was time to do the class Thanksgiving play. And I went to school at a little private Catholic school, and essentially our class was basically half white and half brown, and for sure there were pilgrims and for sure there were Indians in this play, and for sure I was an Indian. And for sure, my very first line of my very first play was, "We plant corn, we hunt deer."
Wow.
And folks, I was
Still-
hooked.
Still etched. Still etched into the mind.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, and I feel like if I got a hold of the text for that play, we'd find all kinds of things really wrong with it.
I can find a couple things wrong already.
Well, we plant corn, we hunt deer as a summary of, my tribe. Clearly is a little limiting, we won't talk about the casting methodologies of my first grade teacher.
It's okay. We got her right here. Miss Johnson, come on in. What is wrong? No, she's not here. Go ahead.
I would say theater began with a classroom play, and I think really when I was bitten was when I went to see theater.
Oh.
There's a theater. It's a little regional theater in Fort Worth, Texas, called Casa Mañana. It's this really crazy building. It is a geodesic dome, and it's sorry for knocking the thing. I talk with my hands. It looks like a sphere with all these different facets to it that looks like it's made out of aluminum foil. And then you go inside and it's theater in the round. And we would go as kids, just taking field trips. And I remember watching, what was it? That's it. That's Casa Mañana. The House of Tomorrow. And I feel like one of the first shows I saw was Tom Sawyer. And also I feel like maybe Annie was one of the first ones. And I remember watching those kids do what they were doing on stage. And I remember thinking, I can do that. Where you're like, I don't know exactly how one gets to do this. It seemed very mysterious to me. I knew nothing about, theater and the process through which you would go to be cast or whatever. But I remember thinking, just knowing, like, I don't know how they got to do it, but I can do that. Like, I can do that. And then it just took a little while. It wasn't until really, when I was probably 12 or 13, where I finally started to have like, actual opportunities to be in plays and stuff. And turns out I could do some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say. Yeah, you definitely had some tools, I'm sure. Is there something specific about, being that young GerRee, watching them on stage that like jumps to mind now that you're like, that is what I thought I could do? Was it just being up there on stage, or was it like?
That's a great question. I think here's one thing. I do remember, what scared me was the idea that everyone would be quiet and only your voice would be going. Because like I've always been able to get down in like a choir situation or like an ensemble scenario, but like really just like being front and center and like it's only me that you're looking at. That was definitely like that looked like a leap to me. Mm-hmm. But what I remember sitting and I think this must have been Tom Sawyer. I remember sitting and my eyes went to this young girl who was just sitting and listening to the scene, and her legs were swinging back and forth, and I remember thinking, well, that's exactly what you would do. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking she's being what you would do if you were in a room and other people were having a conversation and you weren't a part of it, but you were listening to it. And I remember thinking she's doing that on purpose. And I was like, this is so cool. Like realizing like everyone's doing it. Like everyone's creating the sense that this is going on. Like even the person not having the lines. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I want in.
Nice.
How do I get in this?
So then you get 13, 14, or you start auditioning for school projects?
Yeah. Like I was fortunate enough to be a part of first I got to go to a little program called CATS, C-A-T-S.
Not the musical, right?
Not the musical. It was Creative Arts Theater in School. Mm. And
Professor Rum Tum Tugger, everyone.
Yes. And it actually spat out quite a few folks who've gone on to have careers in performance, not necessarily theater per se. Mm. I didn't really know that at the time. It was just this cool place that my dad and stepmom had been, like, someone recommended to them, and then they enrolled me for the summer program, and it was, everybody for several weeks, just like the, I think JCC probably still does this, right? Like the young program, where you put on a musical and you take a few weeks to put it up and you learn all the things. So that was probably my first, like, really true, like, here's how you audition, and now here's your role that you've earned, and like here's, now we're going to put this show up. Then I went to a high school that had a major theater program, and my high school theater director it has been a major influence in my development as a theater artist, and to the point where very recently, I say recently, it's been probably 5-6 years now that he retired, and many of us from 40 years of programming like came back to like do a whole big thing. Like basically a this is your life kind of a situation where it was like little scenes and little things from plays throughout the decades of stuff, and like no one outside of our high school, I'm sure, would have enjoyed that in the least. Mm-hmm. But the people that are so, I don't know, they were inspired in so many different ways. Not everybody ended up staying in the theater, but like the way that he treated young people as the forming artists that they really were, and he made you responsible for your stuff. Like he expected a lot of youth, and when you do that with kids, they deliver. You know what I mean? He was a major part of my theatrical upbringing. So that is probably where I was for sure just like set on a path of theater will never not be a part of my life from this point forward.
Nice. When you talk about you clocking at such a young age, how each person on stage is responsible for creating some leg of the world that they're living in. You then start working with a teacher that is exacting, probably, and has certain expectations. Does that jive with what you saw that one day?
100%. I can remember like one day. So his name is Larry Cure.
Shout out to Larry Cure.
Shout to Larry Cure. We are tipping it back, Mule Dogs. Mule Dogs. We are taking a little shot for Larry Cure. But I can remember, one of his bigger deals is like, so it's a musical, but we're doing the spring musical, and it's obviously it's a cast of thousands, designed that way so that you're getting, giving the maximum number of kids the experience, right? And it is still a quality production that he is, working to put together, right? And so there's not any element that he's willing to just like overlook. If there's some lameness going on, he's gonna call it out. and some of the lessons like he would just feel so passionately about. And one of those, I've never thought of this, Sam, but like one of those was everybody's. Even if you don't have lines, we're, like, what are you doing back there? You're either contributing to where the focus goes, or you are detracting from it. Yeah. And you can detract just as easily by doing nothing, like literally investing nothing in it, as you can by doing too much. So, like, what are you doing? What are you doing back there? And we had just run a scene, and he just kind of like, stop, and he calls out. I think it's a friend of mine. I think it was Carrie. I think it was Carrie Watterson, and I think he was like, Carrie Watterson, what are you doing back there? What are you doing back there? You're just walking by eating a peanut patty. We're all like, what's a peanut patty? But the point was, he's just like, I can't even tell what choices you're making. And now I can't stop looking at you trying to figure out what that guy is doing. And now I'm not focused on what this scene's supposed to be about. So he's like, get it together. What are you doing? Make a choice, stick with it, So, it's funny. I've never really thought about that. The attention to detail that he had, and how that really did pay off on some of the earlier things that grabbed me about it. The world building that you do in theater, and like world building is something that I love regardless of the medium. So I think the things that always draw my attention are, the attention to detail that is paid to just like, whether it's in a book or whether it's in a film or whether it's, in a live show, just like, do you really know where you are and where you are asking people to transport? And how is everyone contributing to making that happen? Whether it's actors or whether it's the technicians or whether it's the designers and animators or whoever is doing it. Like, does everyone understand the world they're building together? And I think so many times when you have sort of a disjointed experience of any kind of story, probably often what's going on is they weren't all building the same world.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask one of the questions of like how, like one of the questions that comes up a lot on the podcast is I'm big as a man that's grown up being coached and being a coach. Mm-hmm. I always talk about buy-in. Mm-hmm. It's like I can get all of you to run to one end of the field and back, right? But if you don't know why you're doing it,
100%,
you're never going to get the point. You're never going to.
Right.
You're never going to. It's never going to mean anything to you. So I love hearing about the story is like in high school having somebody that's like noticing that stuff, picking that stuff up, because then that explains like me and you. I have gushed backstage with you about how special you've been as like a rock, and it's because of your eye. I feel like you're picking up on those things, and that world building is so crucial to a piece like Refuge. And that's, if not everybody is like asking those questions, or at least, oh, I'm glad you asked that question because now I think about that.
Now I'm
and that's
clocking
great.
it. Yeah.
Now I need to know what the answer is so I can make sense of the entire world around it.
Yes.
Like if you're eating the peanut patty over there, Miss Waterston, I need to know that you fucking love that peanut patty.
Exactly. Where did you get the peanut patty?
Is there a vending machine in the other room? Did you have enough change? Did you have to shake it? Okay, you did. Is it still good? Did it expire? You're taking that first bite, and I'm getting nothing from you.
Oh, God.
You know what? Get the understudy in here. This is a high school play. Yeah, well, I've got the budget for understudies.
I wonder if Carrie remembers that.
I hope you share this with her.
I usually do. He.
He.
And he's still a theater professional, so I wonder. I'm gonna have to ask him if he remembers that moment, because maybe it wasn't him, and so like, who was it? Why do I think that it was Carrie that got thrown under the bus that day? But yeah, I think that with the work that any of us are doing in the theater, mm-hmm. There's almost these concentric circles of this world we build, right? And so I think that there's the inner story and the world that contains that story, and then there's that world you build just outside of it that is that, that you are, for this time being, a company, and what is that world you're building together? And if we think about it in terms of Refuge that we're doing right now, one of the things we learned to do, we taught one another to do early on, was feed one another. And you kept us in regular ritual of tequila, right? Yeah. And
I don't have a problem.
right. And Dee with her ritual of checking in, and that world is just as important in terms of how you're fueling the artists who are going to find where in their personal reserves on a daily basis to keep looking, yeah. keep doing and building together, even though, yes, it gets hard, it gets challenging, you're just tired, all of those things. And, if you think about where that took us, mm-hmm. because we certainly had moments of like, wow, well, this is going to be difficult,
this
right?
This is a pickle.
Some things we, just absolutely were beyond anybody's control, in terms of, the boiler going out and like needing to transport from space to space. But we talked about how, well, this is interesting. We took it with us, and we couldn't have done that if there had not been some building that we had done amongst ourselves as a company. Yeah. And I think that right now, like a lot of us in the industry are hurting and or missing and or realizing that we haven't done enough world building in those outer layers, before you can get to that strength of what you're doing on the stage. Like what's the kind of world we're mindfully constructing for one another? You know, the awakening we had in no matter what industry you're in with George Floyd in summer 2020, you know, it's like, yes, pandemic, and yes, you know, are we safe to be, you know, to be coming back to the stage from a viral standpoint? But like, you know, like my friend Alicia Young was like, am I safe at all to come back into the theater? What have we been walking with and dealing with and not talking enough about?
Yeah.
And what does it look like to pay more attention to the kind of world we are bringing these artists into, period, when they just show up in this space? Forget when they start to actually dig in to do that work. Like, how are we putting fuel in their tanks to do the harder things if we haven't also asked ourselves, are we even lightening their load for how to like just be together and speak a common language and have a mutual respect for what everyone could be coming in with at any time? So yeah, world building matters, not just from the standpoint of the story you're going to stand up, but like, what kind of artistry are you standing up?
Yeah, you're holding space. And like, I mean, the thing that the note we've gotten a lot during Refuge, and I think I'll share it again here on this podcast, that Dee has been saying, I just fucking love the way it sounds. It's so true. Knowing your worth in space, right?
Yeah.
So there's like this individual piece to it, like, oh, I am important to this moment. I can contribute as big as I want to contribute right here. And then in that same breath, understanding where you let the other person work in.
Yes.
And what are you giving them?
Yes.
And what are you taking from them, and vice versa, knowing what they are doing to you and taking from you, and so on and so forth. Those pieces are crucial. It's like when you do those daily check-ins that we were doing at the start, I think it relaxed us, made us feel like really kind of working together. Maybe, I mean, the connection piece maybe took longer for others, but like, I mean, I love being in that space. Mm-hmm. I love hanging out there. Mm-hmm. The second I walk into the building, it feels like I was able to bring my dog. Yeah. Like that, I don't get to do that often. There's not a lot of spaces that allow you that option. Right. And it was nice. And then him not being a jerk, and thusly people loving him. So that was also crucial. But
way to go, Mike.
Yeah, Mike is the best. I love Mike. There's other great dogs out there. Archer, I'm thinking of you. There's 2 dogs at the Uhlenhop houses that I love. They're awesome. Anyway, stop talking about dogs because they're awesome. GerRee, you've got a dog.
I've got 2, Poe and Finn.
Poe and Finn.
Yes.
Poe and Finn.
Yes. Named after Poe Dameron and Finn.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Shout outs to my Star Wars nerds in the Who's. Boom. Sudden love.
I need more in this. Just a tad more.
We'll take a break for a pour here. But what I'm trying to get at is, would you say, without stepping on what your ghost light is, do we at theater companies take the right amount of time to at the very least give our artists enough knowledge to help them create the world themselves, or do we just kind of rush to the finish line and get open?
I would say it's not just theater companies, right? I mean, it's so many. Anytime people are working together to put a project up, you can be really focused on what that finish line is supposed to be, looks like, what have you. And I say this as a person absolutely guilty. If there is some sense that, we know what our deadline is, we only have this much time to do it, and also I can tell myself a thing, which helps me in the moment not panic, which is I know what this is. Yeah. The minute you have a lot of people sort of leading the charge who have told themselves, I know what this is. Mm-hmm. You run the risk of skipping those important moments where you all go, what is this together? And as someone who leads work and leads teams doing work, I have started thinking about and again, it's a self-soothing habit that you get in, because I can remember when I first started to creative direct and my brain was exploding thinking about all the things I just knew I was not going to think about, right? Like that I just knew I was going to not know to think about, and it was going to come barreling at me from the side right at the last minute, and I was going to realize I hadn't thought about it, and holy crap, and I'm going to be so bad at this. And as you do more and more, right, you start to have this little template in your mind, and you go like, oh, well, all this is a this, plus one of these other things that I've done before, plus a little bit that I've never done before. This is totally doable. And so you sort of build out these little mind templates, and that's very effective when you are like doing a profession, right? When you're like hunting down this, the same kind of thing over and over. Yes, it's a different animal, different beast every time, but like we have to do something that helps us accelerate and learn and apply what we've learned, and apply like new thinking to old mistakes, right? And at the same time, if we lull ourselves into the idea that we know exactly what this is, we got this, then we're sort of stealing everyone's learning. And I think that is that world building that we have to think about. How do we first build the company that then builds the world together?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. Because one of the things that I was latching onto as you were talking is like, it is important to know what it is that you do know. What can I trust I've already got in the bag? All right, I've got those 3 to 5 tools that I know when it's called upon, I can get those jobs done. I've got that. Boom. Okay. Now that I know those things, this is a new day. And this is a new experience. And what's something you say to us backstage? What are we going to learn today? That is such a crucial point to all, like, when we're talking about art, how are we going to build this today? What's going to be different? What are we going to experience today that we didn't anticipate yesterday or didn't have an answer for because we were never faced with a question? Trying to come into a situation with the grounded aspects of what you already bring to the table and taking ownership of that and being confident in that, and then having the confidence to admit that I'm going to learn something new today.
Yes.
And I'm going to roll with the punches.
And not just the confidence, but the joy and curiosity to say, I'm going to be forward in the question. I'm going to say, what does this process have to teach me? What can I learn from the people sitting at this table? Even the people that I would say I have more experience than, right? And it's like that, I think, like I'm already forming what I would tell. Well, I'm already forming my ghost light statement for sure. And I think it's definitely no one loves the feeling of inadequacy. It's exacerbated by the idea that in this premise, in this industry, especially, well, really, truly for anyone, because it is a public experience that you're building together. You're inviting other people to come on in and see what you built. As an actor, you're literally saying, watch me.
Yeah.
So
even when you're not,
so inadequacy won't serve you.
Yeah.
Right? So of course you try to do anything you can to start to like address the inadequacy. But when we over medicate our inadequacy with all these assumptions or preconceived notions, then we are just sort of we're stealing our learning, right? Like we're saying, well, I already know what this is. And that's not just my learning that I'm stealing. It's anyone who's going to be around me because I've already reached my conclusion. This is what we're doing, and we didn't get there together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean those fears of like they're all gonna laugh at me. They're all gonna laugh at him.
Adam Sandler.
No. Can make us cling to what we can be certain of, but what we can be certain of can just totally put us to sleep on the things that we could be, like learning together and building together. Yeah. I'm so fruity. It's this Basil Hayden.
Basil Hayden. When you need bourbon. Basil Hayden's. Anyway. I've got a whole bunch of Adam Sandler record things playing through my head.
I'm sorry that I started that.
It's totally fine. How about some Bloody Betty? Here's $1.25 and go fuck yourself.
How long could you take this? Do you think you could do this for a solid hour?
It's an veritable forest down there. I could do a lot of quotes from that. For those of you at home who know the Adam Sandler record in which I'm quoting from, it's going to get worse. Push it in and out at a medium pace. At a medium pace. Yes. Call me an ugly woman and punch me in the face. That is not funny anymore. That's terrible.
It's not.
It's terrible.
No. Take it back, Sam.
I can't. I said it.
I know.
Adam Sandler said it first, but God. Oh, man. Why did I have to remember those quotes? That should be a Rubik's Cube, but it's going to stay in. Anyway.
I haven't heard the record, so this has been enlightening for me.
You are welcome. You are welcome for that. I just remembered the second I remembered medium pace, I knew what the follow-up rhyme was, and then I was doomed.
You just couldn't help it. You couldn't help it.
It's like when you said something earlier that reminded me of a song chorus.
Oh, really?
So then my brain wanted to sing the song chorus. I'm like, no, she's going to keep talking. I'm going to let her keep talking.
Was it We Plant Corn, We Hunt Deer?
No, definitely not that one. I always love the interpretation of anyone that is not white as being somewhat inarticulate.
I know, right?
Right? Like, oh no, these people whose language is a fucking poem every time they open their mouth in their native tongue. No, we dumbed it down for y'all, pilgrims.
We plant corn.
Yeah,
we
plant
deer.
corn, we hunt deer.
Subject, verb, object. Mm-hmm. But I would hazard to guess, and I make zero excuses for that play and subject matter and the manner in which our First Nation peoples were depicted in it. And yet I have a feeling that as a first grade play, probably all of our lines were subject, verb, object.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. Let's definitely not hold your Catholic elementary school to task on this one.
You don't remember, but the Pilgrim's line was, "We rape land."
Exactly.
Wow.
So subject, verb, object.
Dan definitely topped me on my quotes earlier. But fantastic. Thanks for that, Dan. Anyway. I think I said anyway about 30 seconds ago, trying to steer us in a different direction. Then I went right back to the Adam Sandler quotes.
You couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't help myself. Oh no, Fatty McGee is coming.
Okay, you gotta. You steel yourself, man.
I gotta steal myself. I can't do the Timothy.
Oh, you can do.
I can't do the quote.
Podcast.
I mean, yeah. No, I should definitely. I'll definitely stop. It's really funny though. When you're a young kid,
you're gonna do it.
No, I'm not gonna do it because I can't. I mean, I definitely remember what Adam Sandler made Mr. McGee's breathing sound like.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna do that.
Are you sure?
Yeah. They're gonna laugh at you. Anyway. All right. One of the things that jumped to mind last time you were talking before I derailed us completely. How much space is there for overconfidence in world building?
Well, it's funny because you won't ever know it was overconfident until you're on the other side. So I would say there's all the space in the world, right? Yeah, I mean, you can throw, the most pat idioms at that, like, right? Shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon or whatever.
There you go.
Right? Like,
It's better to better to say sorry than ask for permission. Something like that.
yeah.
Which
yeah.
is definitely not true.
It does depend. I believe in that in certain instances. I really do.
All right, yeah.
Not in
Good.
instances of like bodily consent.
Absolutely.
But I can tell you many, I feel like many times I have learned that because again, depending on who you are and what culturally you have been conditioned to believe you need permission to do. I mean, there's a lot of people who need relieving of the thought that they need permission to take their worth in space, right? To call back to Dee's thought. It's like, hey, in a lot of ways, let's relieve many of us of this notion that we need permission to be who we are. And and there are lots of people who also need to like ask permission.
Yeah.
But you asked about the role of overconfidence, and I think that believing in oneself, having the audacity to think that you might be able to do something that you've never done before, those are necessary in this work. I don't think that's overconfidence. I think that is like just a primal ingredient that you have to bring to this work. I think overconfidence can be things like, let's do some stage combat, and I know what I'm doing there. No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
No, you don't.
What do you mean I can't just punch the parrot off your shoulder without your permission?
Right.
I know to send the energy past,
Right.
And now we're in the ER, and I'm out of the job.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, overconfidence from the standpoint that it can affect anyone else's safety, well-being. Like, yeah, there is such a thing as overconfidence.
Oh, totally.
But
Look at some of my callback auditions.
oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Say more.
Oh, I've kissed people without touching base with them.
Got you. These are lessons learned.
Yeah, these are lessons learned. At the time I was working with people that were like, "Oh no, that was a great choice.
Right.
Thank you for doing that."
Right,
They didn't necessarily sound like that. But now, with the last, I would say, paying attention to things in the last 4 years, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
well, that's how they're going to get me.
Yeah.
Because I know those moments.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Should not have done that.
Right. And I think that those kinds of revelations that we have, and we all have had them, like that this is not just reserved for anything across the spectrum, starting at white cis men, right? But I think what we're realizing is we limited ourselves with these notions that there's kind of really only one way at certain kinds of things, right?
Yeah,
And
like archetypes or whatever.
yes, and the idea, like we you'll hear all these stories from filmmaking of yore, and directors with their secrets that they would have with one actor or another, and then they would spring it on unsuspecting actress, and and then they'd get exactly the reaction they were hoping for, and
Or how they made Kramer versus Kramer.
right. So like the notion that that somehow you could only get these perfect reactions by hiding something from someone and keeping a secret and then springing it on them. And again, it's like build the world together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like know what it is that you're doing together. Like there's, you know, there's no one should be left in the dark in this work.
No.
And everyone should be able to put their voice in about what's going to make them feel like they can confidently stand underneath whatever it is that, you know, is being decided. And I think that we just get in this place where we think, no, but it must feel magical. There must be surprise. There must be, and it's like, no, there needs to be surprise for the audience. Mm-hmm. And even then, there needs to be some consent that you're able to give to the audience for some of the content, for some of the things that, you know, really can set somebody back if they don't understand that there is that going on in the show. Mm. And you think, oh, but now we've ruined the surprise. And it's like, I mean, it was like when I was pregnant and people would be like, are you gonna keep it a surprise? And I was like, fuck no. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure my first birth is going to be full of surprises.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to like preserve some sense of surprise just because I happen to know what genitalia my child will come with. Like, there'll be plenty of surprises for me waiting, right? And the thing, that's live theater too. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to be surprised. Don't you worry.
Just pay attention. Yes. Stay tuned.
Totally.
Do not go to the restroom.
for both audience and the show, right? Like, like, no worries. There will be surprises aplenty for everyone.
Totally. Well, like, we trust the audience. Like, I mean, I keep harkening back to Refuge, but the vast majority of shows that I've been with, there is always a layer of disbelief that we ask the audience every single show to, like, shut that part of your brain off that says you were sitting in a building with, if depending on where you are, 50 to 100 other people. Yeah.
Or standing out on a golf course.
Or standing out on a golf course, exactly, inside of a golf cart.
Right.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you saw that show too.
I did.
Cheers. Hey, Dan. Thanks. Basil Hayden. For when you want Basil Hayden's. So anyway, but yeah, we ask you to we ask the audience to go with us on a journey every time. Every time. They are complicit in the world that we are building. They have to say yes to it.
Yeah.
If they don't say yes to it, or if they're given a reason not to, then everything starts to fall apart, like Inception. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, if one person starts to wake up in that entire business, the world around them starts crumbling.
Yes, but I do think, though, that we can sell ourselves short and our audiences short when we start to tell ourselves these precious things that, like, there can't be trigger warnings. You're ruining the surprise, you know. And it's like, yes, there can be. You can give people some information that allows them, and you can get haughty. You can, and I don't mean to use that. That's a very judgmental word. You can get emotional about losing that element. Mm-hmm. And say to yourself, but isn't that what theater is for? Aren't we supposed to, you know, like make people think and be surprised by things? And it's like, yes, and theater started at a time when you could either braid a basket or go see, you know, a Greek chorus retell a hero's journey, right? So let's give the human animal some credit for living in quite a different world today. Yeah. And we are asking people whose bodies and brains are like barraged with a fuck ton of things that they have to process on a daily, minute by minute basis. So why don't we make some space that today's brain needs a little bit of an on-ramp sometimes because we're going to take you somewhere. So how about let's give you just a little bit of space to like get your head in the game because we're going to do it to you.
Yeah.
And here are some specific ways we're going to do that. We're not going to tell you all the devices, not going to tell you the ways in which this story is going to come together, but I'm going to tell you we're going to deal in this content and this content. That's, I think, a very human thing to be able to do to today's storytellers and today's story receivers. And I don't think that takes away from where the show can then take you when you have prepared yourself to then sit down and then, yes, like you said, the audience has a role and they're not going to go if they don't buy in, right? And if the first thing that happens to them is they get surprised by some content that they did not know was going to happen, and now they're having a traumatic experience, well, they're not coming for your story. They're leaving now, right? Whereas they could have absorbed this in a different way where they now have a different relationship with the very thing that would have traumatized them. So all of that to say, I think we can sometimes tell ourselves little comfortable lies that, all this awareness that we are now starting to build about what people need is like somehow taking away from all of our magic for telling stories. And it's like, no, it's bringing us actually deeper into the work.
Providing trigger warnings is not like providing a spoiler on Twitter.
Right.
They're very different things. When I hand you a program and it says, "Hey, just so you know, there's going to be some gunshot sounds, and then you're going to experience some haze, some smoke." We don't say on page 52 after this line there's a gunshot.
Right.
We don't spell those things out. We are just letting you know that what you are going to hear is a part of the tools we're using to create this moment in this world.
Right.
And then we let you live through it.
Right.
We let you experience it.
Right.
I think, that providing that is just as crucial as the work we did for 4 weeks before we opened this thing.
Yeah. 6.
6 weeks. If you're lucky.
2 years.
That's right.
Honestly, I don't think, you go to a movie, you see a 2.5 minute preview, there's going to be violence, there's going to be gunshots, there's going to be explosions because they've prepped you for it.
Yes.
I don't see that it's really much of a difference.
Yes,
I was watching
totally.
the American classic Shooter starring Mark Wahlberg today before I came over. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Do you like Wahlberg?
I enjoy Mark Wahlberg. Here's my thing about Mark Wahlberg. I can never forget what he did and then begged Barack Obama to expunge from his record. I can't forget that.
Ooh, I can. I literally have no memory of what you're talking about.
Mark Wahlberg beat a man to death.
What?
Or beat him up really badly.
Those are two very different things.
Two very different things.
Googly goo.
I'm Googling it now. It would now probably be described as a hate crime. Mark Wahlberg.
This is crazy. We're going. I did not know this.
Yeah.
How many left turn? Hard left.
Hard left turn. Mark Wahlberg was a drug dealer and was charged with attempted murder before becoming Marky Mark of the Funky Bunch.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's talk about some white privilege, shall we?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find this specific thing. He attacked 2 Vietnamese men without provocation at the age of 16. He attacked the first with a stick, and then he punched the second, permanently blinding him in the process.
Does he pay that person hundreds of thousands of dollars a year?
Probably not. No.
He should.
Yeah, probably he should. Yeah, absolutely should. So
when Mark listens to this, as I know he will.
Yeah, definitely. He's not an A-lister actor. So please listen to this, and I want you to feel shame. I watched Shooter, and I'm like, oh man, this is a fun action movie.
So I see now how you're conflicted watching him in anything.
Well, I love the movie The Fighter, which is definitely
I didn't see it.
it's him and Christian Bale at pretty good points in their career. Mark Wahlberg is great at playing the dummy that can do one thing really well. And when I mean dummy, I mean like he's just not.
I know your deal.
He's not sharp. Like he's just not sharp. He's a little slow.
Right.
He's focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's fighting. It's pugilism, and he's good in that movie. He is so good in The Fighter. Christian Bale plays his brother. These are based off real characters who struggled with addiction, was a boxer before the addiction kind of took hold. Christian Bale steals pretty much every scene he's in. Breathtaking.
Christian Bale does that
He's really good.
in general.
He's really good. He's also really good at yelling at people on set. Anyway.
Did you ever see Christian Bale when he was like, I don't know, 11, 12 in Empire of the Sun?
No. I hear I should, though. And the gasp.
Oh my God. It's I mean, I myself was 11 and I saw that movie and I was not prepared for the epicness of the scope of all the feelings that could
Was
be
he
had.
nominated for Empire of the Sun?
I don't think so.
No.
But like John Malkovich is in that movie.
Malkovich.
Miranda, I can't think of her last name. Anyway, point is, I don't mean to take us off into movie land, but
No,
like
it's totally fun. I derailed us for this part to get there.
I was, because it deals in a lot of like, because it's set in World War II, and there's all this loss that is there's all this loss that's depicted, and I felt all of those feelings. I think it's a Spielberg film, so you can imagine you just feel all these feelings, plus thoughts about boys were coming online.
Oh no!
And I was like, I feel funny when I look at him.
So what you're telling me is when you look at Christian Bale, you felt some sudden love.
Sudden love.
Tom Stoppard.
Tom Stoppard wrote Empire of the Sun?
Oh, well, there you go.
Wow. Tom Stoppard, everybody. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I can't say that I have watched it as an adult.
Yeah, I don't know if it tracks
So
these
who
days,
knows?
But I'm down to give it a watch.
But that was an epic film for me as a kid.
Sounds like we need a screening in The Wolf.
We can definitely do a screening in The Wolf. Yes. I would also recommend for anyone that is a fan of Marilyn Monroe and her work, because when I was around that same age, GerRee, and someone showed me the film
Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. I often am caught with my mouth agape and my eyes just glazed over, just because I'm always tired.
That's why.
There's that. But my mom and her best friend at the time of them showing me that movie, like, looked at me immediately after.
Is that where she's playing the ukulele on the train? In her
so.
little, like, she's
Yeah.
she's not one of the main characters, right?
Oh no. Some Like It Hot. She is the vixen. She is the one.
Well, then maybe I'm thinking of
I think it's definitely a different one. She's on a beach with Tony Curtis in a couple of wonderful outfits.
So Tony Curtis, I totally had in my head in this movie. Anyway, point is, you were
I was
swept
distracted
away.
I was swept away by Marilyn Monroe in that movie, and
At a young age.
At a young age, much to your embrace of Empire of the Sun and Christian Bale.
Well, right. We're like you just because the other one for me was well, there are two others. These were the three. It was.
Who are your top three?
No. It's not the top. It's just these are the introductory feelings, right? Like, I was watching a movie, like I've always done, and then suddenly I had these feelings.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
one was
suddenly there was some suddenly.
Suddenly, yes, life has new meaning. So
To me.
So it's ridiculous to have had those feelings during Empire of the Sun, because that is not the kind of film it was.
No.
It was entirely appropriate to have those kinds of feelings for Carrie Elways in The Princess Bride,
Yes,
which was
they
about the
are.
same time.
You were not alone.
And then just a little later, I had those feelings for Matthew Broderick in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then it was like, oh my God. Like, I just love boys. Yeah.
As you wish.
Oh, God. I'm telling you.
Right.
I have pictures. Do you remember when you used to have film developed to get photos? Right. Mm-hmm. I have actual photos
Of the TV
Carrie
screen.
Elways and Robin Wright in the Farm Boy scenes because I took pictures of the TV.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to see those Polaroids.
And I counted that as having pictures of Carrie Elways.
You are not alone. I've got pictures. I had pictures on this old phone of Michael Jordan when he won championships. I'm like, oh, I'm with him. I'm celebrating with Michael Jordan.
See, we're together.
We're together. I totally know what you're saying. It's totally fine.
Yes.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe, the secretary in Love Actually for Hugh Grant.
Love Actually.
Yeah.
Hugh Grant. I'm remembering that movie. The Secretary.
Secretary. His secretary
His secretary.
is just
Who is
adorbs.
she?
I
Who
can't
is
remember.
She? Are you
She-
looking it
the
up?
only movie I ever saw her in was Love Actually.
But she has stuck with you.
Stuck. It's just like in there. It's like an earwig. You'll never get that out. So Marilyn Monroe, her, and then are we going for if I'm going for my Mount Rushmore of suddenly life has new meaning moments.
Her name is Heike.
Heike.
Ooh, that's cool.
Let me
Show
see.
me the picture. So
Oh
I can-
yeah.
Oh.
No. That is Alan Rickman's paramour.
You've pulled the wrong actor.
It's Alan Rickman's paramour. How about that for a big word? I'm going to pour myself another basil.
Paramour. You get a little more basil because of that. Good
Paramour.
job.
Thank you.
All right, I'll keep looking.
All right. Anyway, I derailed us to talk about the opening 20 minutes of Shooter.
Right.
With an actor that...
Questionable.
It's a questionable actor now. Like, it doesn't matter. They're still giving him work. So I'm just going to say... The first 20 minutes of Shooter, they give you a flashback. You know what this guy excels at. You know where he was jilted by his government. And you get an understanding that what you are going to be watching for the next hour and a half or more is directly related to this incident. So pay attention if you can.
Yep.
And if you're an audience member and those first 20 minutes don't do it for you, the rest of the movie ain't going to work.
Right.
It's totally fine. It's also an action movie. You're watching something that Hollywood produced. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief about just how much I believe Mark Wahlberg knows about this effect that takes into account the curvature of the Earth. I think it's the Coriolis effect.
In his approach to shooting.
Yes, from a
In
mile
his
out.
targeting.
Yeah.
Wow.
He references that for a brief second. They put it at the end of a fucking list. So they just wanted to I'm just painting the picture that he's really good.
Yeah.
He's the best shooter.
Right.
That's why he's just called Shooter. And they put it at the end of that list, and I'm like, I can see that glazed look in your eyes, Mark Wahlberg. You want to be drinking whiskey. Like, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. Anyway, because of the first 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, I'll give this a go. And then the movie happens, and all I'm thinking about is Kate Mara, and she should get more work.
Yeah, she should.
Kate Mara should get more work.
She's a gift.
You know who should also get more work? More than Kate Mara, and I love Kate Mara. Michael Pena.
Oh, I love him.
Oh my God, Michael Pena.
Yeah.
He's great in Shooter. He is a breath of fresh air to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, he is.
Oh man,
Yes, I love him.
Michael Pena in Ant-Man 1 and 2.
Yes.
Just do yourself a favor. I'm sure they're YouTube compilations. Just pull them up.
Yeah.
You don't need context. He's a joy.
Oh,
He's
he
a
is a
joy.
total
He's
joy.
also in The Martian, and I love him in The Martian. I love The Martian. The Martian made my top 10 movie list
Oh
today.
my gosh. That's right. That's Matt Damon getting abandoned
Yeah, Mars.
accidentally.
Jessica Chastain is his captain. And
Jessica
I have a hard time believing
Chastain.
that Jessica Chastain would make any type of mistake like that. Leave him
Oh
behind.
man. Well, I mean,
But she does
it
listen-
wasn't a mistake. I mean, they had to go.
They had to go. They had to save their lives. I
right?
totally get it.
Yeah.
Hey,
that was not a mistake.
Speaking of 20 minutes, the first opening 20 minutes of a movie that make you buy into the world that they're building,
Yeah.
you're like, yes, these people know science. I'm with you.
Yes, totally.
And at the same time that movie came out, I listened to the Neil deGrasse Tyson review of that movie.
Ooh.
And he greenlit almost all of the science.
Did he? That's amazing. Did you know that was a self-published novel?
Get out of town.
Not even kidding you for a little bit.
Wow.
Yep.
The Martian.
Yeah.
Go rent it today.
Yeah. Read it.
Read it.
Yeah.
Go to
I
the
believe
library.
It is, of course, no longer self-published.
No,
believe
I'm sure
that
you
it
have to
has
pay
been
money
picked
for it
up
now.
for a pretty
yeah, but
penny.
if you get a library card.
But initially, you could read that shit on Amazon for free.
Wow. Shout outs to making your own work.
That's right. Get in there.
You're out there. You've got the tools. If you're listening at home, you are an artist. You've got the tools. Get cracking. Do you.
Do it.
Do you.
it. I have a friend who got published first, but now she self-publishes because the publishing rigmarole was just ridiculous, and she actually has more access to her readers this way. But she writes some steamy-ass novels. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are they modern romances?
They are modern romance.
Can I get the hookup?
Yeah.
The only books I read during high school were modern romances. Lisa Jackson, man.
So this author's name is I'm just trying to think. Does she go by her real name or does she have a pen name? I'm pretty sure she goes by her real name.
Are any of her books entitled Sudden Love?
Yeah. I don't think it's bad to say it, but I'm going to say it now, and then if I find out, then I'm going to have to
You'll have 12 hours
hit a
to get it
Rubik's
taken
cube. out. So Christy Berry, and her first novel was set in Austin and deals in some polyamory. And I don't know if she continues the polyamory thread in her other novels. I haven't finished her first novel, and that has nothing to do with whether or not it was good. It has to do with the fact that I have ADHD, and the pandemic really did a number on that for me. And even before that, motherhood did a number on it. And I haven't read a full book in years.
My name's Sam Gilstrap. It's nice to meet you.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Yeah. I'm only recently diagnosed and have been on medication for about a month.
Wow. Ooh, then next question. Have you noticed a difference in your art creativity?
I have.
Is it better, worse, middling?
Better.
Explain how.
Well, for acting, what had started to happen is whatever sort of built-in coping mechanisms I had while undiagnosed had started to slowly peel away during motherhood and then completely just get blown the fuck apart during the pandemic. So the isolation, the not having my people around me, like the one day looking so much like the one before it, like in ways we never thought possible, right? And then just the 2D, because I'm in conference calls all day long for my job, and so all of that just slowly conspired to just completely rip away my last remaining apparently coping mechanisms for my ADHD, and suddenly, I just could not really boss my own focus around anymore. And it took emergency scenarios in order to buckle down and focus. And, we all know, hey, responding to a little emergency here and there can be really inspiring, actually. But if it's nothing but that, if I'm just procrastinating until everything's sort of ooh, I was just super anxious. And even if I wasn't barreling down on a deadline, I still felt like I couldn't just direct my attention where I needed it to go. It instead was just like whatever happened to be able to hold my attention. So all of this to say that the way that it has changed for me is that lately, so I took a hiatus from doing shows for about 8 years, during which I had a child. I just had my day job had kind of grown into a career, and I just couldn't burn candle at both ends at that point. And, for 8 years, I was off the boards. I would still do little bite-sized projects, I called them. In 2016, I stepped back onto the boards to do a show at Curious, one of the Elliot trilogy by Chiara Alegria Hudes, and that show back was like, whoo, like getting under the lines and everything was like. In my mind, I was like, well, of course, it feels a little like, woof, it's been 8 years, Next show, also at Curious, was the third of that trilogy. It's like, hey, they made the character even more prominent, even more lines. Of course, that felt like a big thing, right? Like, next thing I do was, I think, Catamounts was the Men on Boats. And I remember thinking well, this is an ensemble piece. It is 8 freaking people, How many lines can there be that belong to any one character? And then, I remember, starting to highlight and going oh, you're fucked. And that was, that's a 4-week rehearsal process for Catamounts, and you're just like boom, boom, boom. And the good news is that so much was so physical that you start to, anytime your body is really engaged, that line stuff starts to get. But there was this one big motherfucking monologue where, Major Pal has to just lay it the fuck down. And it is nothing but words and nothing but everybody in the cast watching Major Pal just do nothing but words. And I had started to have this several bands going in my brain. And it actually, when I think back on it, it actually started from the minute I got back on the boards, and I just didn't realize that this had happened. I started having this very bifurcated experience, and there was the one voice that was trying to focus on this character, and then there was the other voice literally right next to the other one going, what if you forget right now? What if you forget this? What if you forget this? What if you forget this? What if you forgot this? What if you forgot that? Oh my God, you just said that, but you don't even remember thinking about it. Oh my God, do you remember this? Constantly, just fucking chattering away in my head. I could not just focus. And so it just started to build and build. And finally, my anxiety got the better of me, and I went up on opening night for Men on Boats.
Oh, no.
Thank God for Karen Slack. She had my back. She had my front. She had my side. She had my feet, my legs. She was fucking there. She knows the text backwards and forwards. And she just once she realized that I was not going to pick this up, she literally fed me, whatever the little bit I needed. And then I was back on. But it was and I've never felt worse in my whole life. It was opening night. It was I just felt crushed. I felt like I had let everybody down. It's still, I could cry right now thinking about it, not only from the standpoint of the failure that I felt, but also just the get yourself a Karen Slack. That's all I have to say. I'm so grateful that she is a part of my life. We found each other early on, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad to have her in my life. But so that experience of the lines and the just this other thing going on while I'm in performance, and this, other voice, just like, oh my God, what if? And I finally, in this show, after getting medication for ADHD, it's like it just goes zoop. And it's not that I don't still have access to that thread, because that really is a part of your brain going, oh God, wouldn't this be crazy if you, let's not do that, right?
Yeah.
But I can focus on what I need to focus on, and that other thought process is just this little thread that is allowed to just kind of like, and just fizzle out because I'm not paying any fucking attention to it.
It's like a road sign as opposed to an off-ramp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it has made a huge difference.
Nice.
This is the first show. This show right now is the first show that I have been able to truly enjoy, like get to the place where we've done it so much that now we're having fun, where we're finding new things will bobble and you're able to like react to and find it.
Totally.
And like where I literally don't feel like I can't even speak about it lest I bring the gods down on my head. Like I haven't felt free to enjoy a show that I've been in years because of, I now realize what was happening in my focus and my ability to just have agency over it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's changed a lot for me.
Fuck yeah. I'm glad you found that.
Me too.
Yeah. It's like, you talk about that voice, and for a second I was like, I'm going to have to look at what bifracted means. And then you explained it to me. I'm like, oh shit, I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And how even as we've been talking all day, those little voices that come into my brain to like, oh, I've got a quote that goes along with this. Now, like when I'm self-conscious of it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a better job of reining that in. But when you can't,
right?
When you can't shut off one of those voices, there's got to be this a certain amount of fear that's always with you on stage.
Yeah.
And while it's one thing to say, be fearless, break a leg, go out there, give them heck, knock them alive. Cliches that we give ourselves and to others when we're about to perform or whatever it is that we're about to go out there. Yeah, exactly. Fuck it up. Put them on notice, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's light this candle. I've got a list of them. I'm a coach. And to have all of that while your brain is going like, tonight by me the night.
Right. And what will you do?
Yeah. Oh man. Opening night for this. I'm sitting there going like, did I do the dance with Martina? Okay, I did do the dance. Oh no, I haven't. No, that's coming. Okay,
yes.
That's coming.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're all doing that.
Oh, yeah,
because that show, especially by opening night, like, we had just begun to ride the horse rather than get dragged behind it. We had only just begun that. And so you're still going, what's next? Got it. What's next? Got it. Okay. And like as an actor, you are literally like inhabiting all these different functional thoughts while then trying to live at a higher altitude of like being present and inhabiting this character and letting the character take control. And yet you have all these mechanical things, especially in a show like this, that you have to pay attention to. So there are a million different bandwidths going on, in your head. But your ability to go, I'm focusing here right now, thank you very much. And I'm focusing here right now, thank you very much. And I'll just have to worry about that later. Just is destroyed sometimes with something like ADHD. And it's just like
yeah. What I'm describing from my own personal experience is just like my own insecurities, right? Like I could not imagine having to contend with something like ADHD along with my own insecurities.
Yeah.
Like that would be. I'm a lot of fun sometimes. I don't know how much fun I'd be if that were the case. Like real talk. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing with me that, because the second you brought it up, I was like, oh, I wonder how that's affected it. And then you provided the entree, and I really appreciate it because, I mean, it is a part of who you are, and it explains so much of the growth that you've had just within the last couple of months as a performer, and how still, when I saw Men on Boats, how awesome you were.
Thanks.
And the energy in which that you would like carry us through the Henrys with Stephen J. Burge. Like there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that was going into play, and a lot of memorization, a lot of work to all of those little bits and pieces. And for what it's worth, never felt like you were lacking.
Oh, thank you.
Or that we caught you lacking.
Thank you. Well, again, the Henrys, the thought that you think I had anything memorized is hilarious. we Stephen and I, we would write the show
the night before.
We'd write all our bits, not the night before, but the night before the night before. Okay. And
bottle of basil between you two.
We'd have the running order of who all was going to, be doing the awards, and so that that gives you context about different jokes that you might be able to make and things like that. And so there's only so far in advance you could actually do that writing, because there's only they only make some of those decisions right towards the end. And so we'd get together, we'd write the bits and stuff, and it's like once we had those, then it was time to transfer those things to index cards. And so we would literally be cutting our bits, our script onto index cards so that we would then have them. And so this is the deal. The ADHD brain was like, we will have a way to put order on this. Otherwise I will be overwhelmed by it. I didn't know that was what was going on. But what was great about it is that we'd have all these bits, and the number one job that we assigned ourselves as hosts of that evening was, we've been in the audience for it, obviously, and there's nothing like the feeling of being halfway through it and realizing you're only a quarter of the way through it, where you're like, oh, this is taking forever. And so our jobs, we felt like, was to understand when we hit the point of no return, and nothing would be funny, even if it was the funniest shit you've ever written, because people are fucking tired of sitting there. And so we were able to go like, boom, boom, that's out. Now it's just this. This is the only thing that matters. This is the only thing that matters. And so, like, depending on however things went for that evening, it was like you were just able to start tossing bits left and right, because it's like, no. People need to get to their pizza and their beer and their, right? Like, they're done.
They're all going to Cap City,
done.
so can we wrap?
They don't have any time for your stupid ass jokes. So let's get the show on the road, right?
Is that Sam Gilstrap in a white suit wearing sunglasses at the Pace Center? What an idiot. Can we
Sam,
go to Cap now?
Do you have feelings? Do you have feelings about?
I mean, I was in my cups. Like,
oh my God.
They asked me to present. And then right before they asked me to present, they said,
They asked you not to.
No. I wish they had. I wish that they had. What they did do, and I would keep names secret because I'm a professional. They're like, oh, the person you're presenting with is single. And we paired you together so that you could make a connection. I'm like,
Dang.
Now I'm all in my head because I am such a devil with the ladies. Right? Oh, yeah. We're all believing that. All head nods. And here I am, contacts in, glasses on. Hey, shout outs to the Arvada Center for getting my contact lenses, by the way. Anyway, and I do my presentation. I've got sunglasses on. I make eyes at BLF who's sitting in the front row. I'm the only presenter that came out the day with his drink in his hand. Not a good look.
Totally a good look.
Well,
that was some smooth ass shit.
Oh, thank you.
What year was this?
Oh, it was a couple of years ago. In a white suit. You can find it on Facebook, I'm sure.
And this was still a year that we were.
I think it was your last year. Is that the Pace Center?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the year of the Pace Center, like your last year at the Pace Center, my first time presenting. And anyway, and so like I come up there and I'm like, I said something cute right before I did my part of the introduction of the awards, and then I handed it off to my partner. And because they told me my partner was single and that I should ask them out, I'm like, once I handed it off, I totally gave them the eyes. And I got her number at the end of the show.
So they were right. No.
And I called, and she told me very nicely how disappointed she was that I asked for the number because she thought it was a professional courtesy, and I am currently seeing somebody.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, it's a yikes moment for me.
Someone set you up.
It felt like a setup.
You were set up for failure, dude.
I was either set up for failure, or I was set up by people who just saw two people that could connect,
right.
And they didn't know anything about this person's private life because it is their private life.
Because it is their private life.
And they were absolutely within their rights to put me in my place and the way in which that they had. However, I just want to acknowledge that for all of my blunders, asking out other artists, for that, I have photograph evidence of somewhere.
Wow.
There's a photo of me with my sunglasses on at the Henrys behind a podium, glass in hand, just staring at her like a creep in a white suit.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the things that we learn.
Still got that white suit and I still fit in it.
So do you... Yeah. Okay. So what she was saying was she felt like you put her in a bind asking for her number because why would she be so rude as to not give you her number? But she was disappointed that you actually used it.
I think what she was operating under the impression, because I did not, I was not fully transparent when I asked for the phone number.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was like, hey, could I have your number and call you sometime? That's pretty vague. No specifics provided.
But Yep. I will say if that had been me, and that is how you asked for my number, I would not have thought anything other than you want to see if there's something.
Totally.
So, if you said, hey, can I have your number? There's a show I'm casting and I'd really like to consider you for it. Well, and then you're like, never mind.
And I've got this
I just want to
basement
take you out to
apartment
dinner.
with this couch where I'd like to get you on camera.
Like, you're skeevy and full of shit.
Totally. Absolutely. The moral of the story is just be as best you can your authentic self whenever you can be.
Did you feel like you were not being your authentic self in that white suit?
Of course
with those
not.
Sunglasses.
I mean, I'm dressed to the nines because if I look good, I play good.
But I've seen you come in dressed to the nines. Like, that's kind of what you do. That's a thing you do.
Yeah, no, it's my thing. I want to look good.
Yeah.
Even though the vast majority of the audience will never see that. I know that I took time out of my day to put my stuff together because I was focused at 4 p.m. I was focused and ready to go at 4 p.m. I had my outfit at 4 p.m. I show up at the theater. I'm looking good. I am already out of that outfit, so I'm in costume right at like 15 minutes after call. Like, that is all part of my brain. It's like, nope, I'm ready at 4. I walk into theater. I am ready for the show before anyone else is. I'm setting that tone. Mm-hmm. I mess with that script as hard as I possibly can. I try to be the first one off book or really close to it because I don't want to be the last guy asking for lines. Not that there's anything wrong for that. I just don't want to be doing that.
Right.
I just don't want to be doing it.
Right. That's for your personal build. That's what you need.
It's for
that's
me.
That's foundational for you.
It is. I feel like I am the most creative once I have the script out of my hand.
Anybody is.
Yeah. I can do more. I feel more free. I'm not tethered to it. And if for a show where you're carrying puppets, it ain't easy to carry the script and the puppet at the same damn time.
The minute you got that script out of your hand, the wolf shot forward like 1,000%.
Yeah. And man, shout outs to quitting your job when you know it's not going to serve you.
Yeah.
Because I needed to do that.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Cheers
still got
to
some
that.
of my cups.
Boom.
Cheers to that. GerRee, when we get to this point in the conversation, I want to ask, what is that ghost light you'd like to leave on for the next generation?
I had the thought earlier. I marked it and I said, I think this is it. I think I know the ghost light thing that I'll say. And it goes something like, be careful what you assign yourself. Be careful not to just preload yourself with so many things going into the project that you leave yourself no space to accept new assignments. I think that's it. We can convince ourselves that we're not enough, and so we need to really, really do this. And we can convince ourselves that, again, like a preconceived notion of, here's what I already know. And this work is by nature collaborative. So if we've come already holding all we can hold, how are we going to reach out? How are we giving ourselves another hand to like hold something for someone else or grab their hand and, get something from them? And so, yeah, just be careful that you don't come in already burdened and leave yourself no way to take up a burden for someone, take a new assignment you never even thought to give yourself. Have enough wherewithal to throw some shit over the side.
Get rid of some of that ballast.
Get rid of some of it. Take on something new.
Absolutely. Know your worth in space, but leave space for growth.
Yes.
Bam. Ghosties. This is GerRee Hinshaw. This is the Ghost Lights Podcast, episode 87 on our March to Infinity. Get your tickets to Refuge at Curious Theater now, ASAP. Please do so. You know what? While I'm at it, go get your, since we're talking about Karen Slack, go get your tickets to
Hurricane Diane.
Hurricane Diane. Go do that ASAP.
At the Fox Theater, the Aurora Fox Theater.
It's got Karen Slack. It's got Ghost Lights guest Emma Messenger. It has Chelsea Fry, who is one of the co-creators of One Way Back Day. Go see that show. And I think it's like all women.
Janae Burris, who was just in Eddie and Dave for the Catamounts. Go get those tickets. Go see some live theater. Be safe, obviously. And Shannon Steele.
Yeah. That sounds like a made-up name, but it's crushing it. It's a great name.
Sounds like a romance novel name.
It does sound like a romance novel name. But it also sounds like Shannon's name, and she's crushing it.
She will steal your heart.
See what she did right there?
It's true.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Do the damn thing.
You're gonna spit that gum out, right?
Is it catching in the microphone? Oh, is it?
Are you chewing it?
I feel like I'm in your mouth.
I hope you recorded that.
Yes, I'm testing recording. It's there. And
That's got to go in at the end. That's got to go in at the end. If you do not put that at the end, I will find another producer. I swear to God.
Oh, that's true. That is... I always put a stupid comment, and I walked right into that one.
You always pop it right at the end there.
I find something that we cut that's...
Some little dumb derpy thing.
Some little derpy thing, yeah, for sure.
We try to have fun here on the pod.